Bought myself a 2013 Honda Fit. Love this little thing. But it had a problem in that a dog had gotten a hold of, a little puppy had been chewing on the handbrake here. And I went to see if I could replace just the handle of the handbrake. No, they want you to replace the cables and everything, the whole apparatus. It's like, good grief. I didn't want to do that for several reasons, one of which is just this such cheap material. Even this is starting to show wear and weathering here. So what I did is I went and ordered online a NRG parking brake handle. You can see the numbers here for it. And this is what it is, an aluminum parking brake handle. And I measured how far down I wanted to go with it, and then cut this using this saw, this vibrating saw. Cut this here and then sliced it up this way. And you could really tell there's two different types of material in here. This stuff here is pretty easy to cut. You can even cut that with a knife. When I got out to the end, you could tell another type of material was up there, and you can see it's a really stiff plastic that's up in there. And here's the end of the knob. You can see what the dog had done to it. Really had chewed on it pretty good. But you can see inside there, that's kind of a custom fit plastic. So it was really hard to get it off. But I finally wrestled the thing off. The next problem, though, is the NRG grip is for a round handbrake, but this handbrake here is rectangular. So I had to trim a little bit off the top and the bottom. There was kind of a ridge that ran along there. And then I had to reshape it because this NRG grip would only go about like this far. Even with it, once I took the top and the bottom off, I sawed sideways and got that ridge down. But still, I had to reshape this rectangle into more of a circle. So what I did is I took wrenches, started out with a 22 millimeter high strength wrench, and put it on here. And with one hand I pulled this way with it, and the other hand I moved this thing back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and just chewed. It chewed a bunch of metal off and also reshaped a bunch of metal. And once I did with the 22, then I went and grabbed a 21, because it takes a 21 millimeter wrench to make it the right size. And you talk about a lot of elbow grease, but one hand pulling back and the other hand wrenching it back and forth. I was finally able to get it down far enough where this NRG grip will slide over the whole ugly thing, and it works great. And you can see that I did leave the ugly knob on there, and one of the reasons I did that is that this grip here, this metal, gets fatter the more farther back you go. So the speed at which your wrenches are reforming that gets slower and slower and slower till you get right about there, and it's about impossible. So if I take this off, that makes it too far to try to get it down in there. But that worked. Just a couple of wrenches, a lot of elbow grease. Here's a helpful tidbit you learned in hindsight. This boot here will actually slide off once you cut the end of the plastic off. There is actually retainer clips that are in here, and in this plastic molding it's almost virtually impossible to get the thing to slide off. But if you cut this about basically 3 inches back from the end, you can get beyond where all those retainer clips are, and then just cut around it and then remove this part. You remove that part, the rest of this is going to slide off. And what this does is this exposes this so you can see what you've got going here. One thing to be careful of is the spring that holds this, that pushes this back, is held in place by these two indents. The metal is pressed in and the spring is up tight against it. So if you separate this left and right, and there's nothing holding it now that you took the plastic off, but if it comes apart, that spring will shoot down beyond that point, and then it's a royal pain because you got to pull this over to the right side and push that spring back and get it caught back on that lip again. and then you've got to push this over to the left side, and then get on the other side of that spring and push it, because there's another thing on the other side there to get it back on there. So be careful of that. Don't let the spring get away on you. You might even want to, once you get past this point here, put something on here, maybe even wrap it up with some electrical tape so that the two sides don't come apart and you don't lose the spring. But the advantage, again, of cutting this thing 2-3 inches down, you can take that off, you can take this off, and that way when you put your bar, the handle, the new grip on there, you can actually custom cut this. Mine is really poorly cut and it's cut too short. So you can actually custom cut it so that you get a snug fit with this to the base of the grip you're putting on.